What's up, everyone? It's Russo. I hope everyone is doing well. Please follow my Instagram at RussoLifts, just in case something happens to this YouTube channel. You can follow, message, and you can watch my daily story content on Instagram. I'll see you there.
AIs are poison. Take one. Going in 3, 2, 1. Action.
What's up, everyone? It's Russo. I hope everyone is doing well. You know, I always start off with the ASMR sip here, and while I'm sipping, be sure to hit that like button, and if you subscribe, be sure to hit subscribe and then hit all, and you might see my videos. Probably not. Anyways, today I'm going to be going into me potentially spreading AIs or poison bodybuilding misinformation. So unlike most people, I address my criticisms. I like criticism. I love my haters. You know, the haters were getting kind of boring, but they picked up again. They seem to be going again, so everything's going back to normal. And I always appreciate a good quality troll comment that like is well engineered. You know, it looks like a high IQ troll, not someone stupid. But anyways, gonna be going into AIs or poison. So I got a lot of flack when I'm, you know, poised my stance against heavily being against AIs. Now this comes from my personal bodybuilding journey, experience on utilizing AIs in my younger years and abusing AIs in my younger years, which in my opinion impacted my cholesterol in a negative way, halted the gains I could have made, and I was kind of a fucking idiot, right? Because I wasn't really checking my E2 number. I just did the bro science thing of, oh, I'm taking 500 tests, I should add in this AI, right? So here's where I'm going to correct myself and say AIs or poison is a bold statement, and I'll say I overstated it in that sense, right? An AI is very useful and needed in certain cycles, especially blast dosages with, you know, a lot of aromatization going on. Absolutely, add in an AI. And it's so also like in a clinical setting, like here comes the plug. If you go to my TRT clinic, in the description or pinned comment below, Elevate, and they put you on TRT and you have a high body fat, you have high aromatization, you obviously might need an AI. But what they're gonna do is they're gonna pull bloods and they're gonna see how the AI impacts your blood work. And as long as it's at or around, you know, 60, I prefer slightly higher than 60, honestly. I like to sit my E2 around 80, but that's not poison, right? It's been studied for years. As long as it's not crashing your estrogen, then yeah, that's an overstatement on my fault, and I apologize, and I was incorrect. However, the angle I'm coming at is my younger self, how I used to do AIs. I used to, you know, I would do my pre-cycle bloods, but as the cycle goes on, you know, I'm just like, oh, my nips are sensitive, add in an AI. I don't really, you know, I just did the protocol I read online. Probably was crashing my estrogen at certain points or crushing my estrogen at certain points, which was impacting my cholesterol in a negative way and was halting the gains, because you actually need high estrogen to build muscle, right? That's why wet cycles are a thing, to put on tissue with a wet cycle, and then you harden it up with a dry cycle when you compete. You know, people all the time nowadays do dry cycles and use AIs and abuse them. And, you know, it leads to them not really putting on much tissue, them looking really good, but then not putting on much tissue. So back in my younger years, I used to just run an AI, never would track it, and I was scared to get gyno. This is before I got the gyno surgery, and if you guys are new to my channel, I documented my full gyno surgery experience. But back when my gynecomastia was starting to form, I was super paranoid. I was always blasting AIs to shrink it because I didn't want the comments, and I didn't want, you know, everyone fixated on, oh, there's gyno there now. Like, that always kept me going back to abusing AIs. AIs are horrible for joint and tendon health. We can see with, and I'll have Andrew throw a picture up of him, Joe Aesthetics, right? Joe Aesthetic abused AIs, and I believe he tore his tricep or bicep from, you know, the collagen and everything not being there to repair it, and the AI is weakening the tendons and joints over time, right? There are side effects, and that is poison in a way when you're abusing it and not respecting the AI for what it is. And then moving forward to a health mitigation standpoint, really, obviously, if you're going to use a big bodybuilder cycle with a high dose of tests, like 500 to a gram or over a gram, probably going to need an AI. I'm not against that. That makes sense. Like I said, if you test your numbers on your E2 and it's at 60, preferably higher, but at least at 60, then there's not much impact. You know, your cholesterol's still there. Obviously, the higher your E2, the more brain protective that is, as well as, you know, the more cushioning for your joints and tendons and shit. But, you know, that's not poison. What I'm saying is, like, for a health standpoint, you should really be at the optimum body fat when you start TRT, which is around 250 milligrams max, which is like bodybuilder TRT. But like if you're with Elevate, right, and you want 160 to 250 a week, you want it to be sustainable, you want it to be long term, you should really get to a body composition of, you know, 10 to 12%. That way when you add the TRT on top, there's not much, you know, aromatization to estrogen going on. You probably most likely wouldn't need an AI and could avoid that altogether, all those side effects, that entire drug altogether. And that would be harm mitigation in my opinion. Now obviously, like I said, with the bigger cycles, definitely want to add in an AI, or if you're using something like Trestolone, Ment, you know, something with a crazy conversion, yeah, you're gonna need an AI. I'm not saying to avoid AIs completely. I'm just saying, like, me in my younger years, I'm referencing to the idiotic mistakes I made in my younger years. I used to think AIs were like the shit, right? I didn't think there were any consequences of AIs. I just knew that they were gonna stop my gyno and keep my estrogen in check, and I would constantly use them all the time without really pulling my E2 numbers. You know, I wouldn't pull them on cycle to see how creeping the AI up was doing with my estrogen. I would just pull, you know, pre and post cycle bloods, or bloods every 6 months if I'm just doing experiments. Like, I wasn't really on top of keeping my E2 level in check, and I definitely crashed my estrogen for long periods of time, which halted my gains. Paranoia of getting gyno. I was basically poisoning myself. That's what I was getting across when I refer to AIs or poison. But yeah, I did want to correct myself and say, like, yeah, AI definitely is needed in certain situations if the E2 is going crazy. If you keep the E2 in a good range with the AI, all power to you. Realistically, there are tons of my friends and people who follow me around the world and message me on Instagram at Russo Lifts, there's the plug, that use TRT. They're already in amazing shape before they start TRT. They end up pulling their blood work. With the added AI, it's crashing their estrogen. They take the AI out completely, and they don't need the AI at all at the body comp they're in. Now, obviously, if you start fatter, if you start out of shape with a shitty diet, etc., you're gonna have more issues there. Gonna probably need the AI. But really, when I refer to it as poison, I just see AIs constantly being abused because of the fear of getting gynecomastia, which is everyone does bodybuilding for vanity, right? At the end of the day, it's corely for vanity. You know, getting big booby nipples as a male isn't on, you know, the forte when it comes to building a sick physique. That is going to keep people abusing AIs. In that regard, from that angle, AIs are poison. However, I completely understand if you're pulling bloods, keeping the E2 in check. Like if Elevate is monitoring your blood work, yeah, they're going to keep the AI dosage at the correct amount. And like I said, you know, crashing your estrogen, your joints feel like shit, much easier to pull tendons or tear muscles. And your brain is, you know, in a more toxic state. It's less neuroprotective the less estrogen you have. And it's also horrible on the libido. You could have super high tests, but if you're nuking your estrogen with an AI, your libido is going to be trash. My best erections are when my, you know, E2 levels around 90, 100, honestly. Higher estrogen, I get better erections. So yeah, wanted to come out there and correct myself and comment down below your experience with aromatase inhibitors. But yeah, I was just an idiot back in the days, like most of what I see in my Instagram DM box, who would just follow the blanket things I read online of like, oh, if you do this, cycle, it doesn't really matter what your individual biomarkers are. If you do this cycle, you follow this AI dosage the entire time, etc., etc. So I just want people to stop that and realize that that could be potentially damaging, and that to keep your E2 level definitely on check. So hopefully I clarified and apologized. I'm not always right here. This is a learning experience and a journey, not, the master, right? You're watching the Padawan turn into the master here. You're not watching the master here, right? I am not that smart. I will see you guys in my next video.